Hello Star Wars fans, and welcome to episode 109 of Journey into Legends. Today I'll be reading Tatooine Ghost by Troy Denning. Released in 2003, Tatooine Ghost follows Han and Leia on a trip to Tatooine as they uncover the mysteries of Anakin Skywalker's childhood. I've always been really excited to see how this book connects the original and prequel trilogies, so without further ado, let's read and review. First, we have a very short story called Corphelion Interlude, and it's only a few pages long, but I thought it was pretty nice. In this one, Han brings Leia to watch the Corphelion comets, where he's arranged one of the comets to pass just around the resort they're staying at. It's a pretty short and sweet little story, and I enjoyed it. Next, we have an ebook by Troy Denning called A Forest Apart. For some reason, Han is on the cover of this, despite the story not even being about him. Anyways, this one follows Chewie and his family on Coruscant as they end up entwined with an Imperial subterfuge plot involving an interrogator droid programmed by Yasan Isard to destroy the New Republic's leadership. Overall, I enjoyed seeing Chewie's family, and their interactions were nice, but I thought the whole plotline went off the rails a bit, and the conflict just felt forced. This is a pretty common issue I have with some short stories and comic stories as well, where we can't just simply tell a slice-of-life story without injecting some action and Imperial shenanigans into it, because it's Star Wars, after all. I would have preferred if this was just a shorter, coming-of-age story about Chewie's son, since I really didn't care about the larger plotline. Alright, so this book takes Han and Leia to Tatooine to obtain an Alderaanian painting called Killik Twilight at an auction. Hidden in the painting is a rebellion code that could be used to communicate with rebel spies throughout the galaxy. Also after the painting is the Empire. After the bidding quickly goes awry, the painting is stolen by none other than Kitster Benai, the best friend of a young Anakin Skywalker in The Phantom Menace. We'll talk a bit more about the significance of this later on. Overall, this whole plotline was a decent enough narrative backdrop for the book, although the stakes did feel fairly low and it just wasn't a very creative or memorable plotline. However, definitely the most interesting aspect of this storyline was the journey our characters went on to hunt down the painting. I specifically enjoyed the scenes of Han trying to chase down the sandcrawler in the middle of a sandstorm, and nearly dying in the process. It reminded me a lot of Luke getting lost in the blizzard on Hoth, and for some reason, I just really enjoy storylines like this that just put our characters through the ringer. I also found the imagery and atmosphere evoked by these scenes pretty striking. But easily the highlight of this book, and the whole reason it exists and is worth reading, is the myriad of connections it makes to the prequels, including uncovering the young life of Anakin Skywalker, meeting some of his childhood friends, reading the journal of Shmi Skywalker, and more. I usually don't love when they try to force connections between the trilogies, as it's usually handled pretty haphazardly and ends up feeling like fanfiction, but this was just super satisfying to read. Maybe it's because this is an essential part of Leia's journey to eventually understanding her father, and even trying to redeem the name Anakin by naming her son after him, but anyways, this book ended up having some really poignant moments, as Leia got to meet her grandmother through the journals, got to see her father as a child, learned he was a slave, learned how Shmi got taken by the Sand People, and how Anakin killed them all. It was also interesting to learn how Anakin's legacy has evolved on Tatooine, whether it's Wald denying that he became Darth Vader, Kitster understanding why he did, or the Tuskens viewing him as a vengeful ghost that killed an entire tribe. This was just a fascinating read throughout. The final thing I wanted to talk about was actually how this book fits into the timeline. With this book releasing in 2003, it came out decades after all the books surrounding it. Despite that, it slides right in between Courtship of Princess Leia and the Thrawn trilogy pretty seamlessly. There's quite a few mentions of the Hapen affair, with Han still being extremely angry at the New Republic Council for the whole Isolder situation. There's also references to Wraith Squadron and their current missions. And finally, we have the Chimera involved in the book, with the implication that Thrawn is the one after the Killik Twilight painting, which lines up with his return from the unknown regions, him taking command of the Chimera, and his interest in art. I also love the decision to not specifically name-drop Thrawn anywhere in the book. Not only would that have felt forced and distracted from the plot, but for those who are able to figure it out, it's that much cooler and gives the impression that he's just behind the scenes pulling all the strings. I thought that was really well done. So overall, this book was a mixed bag. While I enjoyed some aspects of the main plotline about the Killik Twilight, it lacked stakes and it felt more like filler, and I found myself waiting patiently for the next journal entry from Shmi or the next conversation about Vader between Han and Leia. Another issue I had with this book is the unnecessary side characters. Chewie and 3PO do practically nothing in this book, and it really doesn't make sense for them to be there. Realistically, bidding for a painting is something that Han and Leia should be comfortable doing without backup that stands out like a sore thumb. And the other allies they make along the way, mainly the squibs, felt super unnecessary, forgettable, and at times annoying. But overall, the connections to the prequels and the development for Leia made this book worth my time, in my opinion. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And stay tuned for my next video where I'll be reading Shatterpoint by Matthew Stover. See ya.